this is a good point to actually go back over some of the terminology that we're using and re-explain a few of the concepts, just to make sure that as much as possible, this information can be understood by as many as possible. So first of all, let's start off with the term paradox. In your view, in this context, what is a paradox?
From the frame that we're in, timeline confusion and genocide and the other stuff, that it's when you have two present selves making choices in a free-willed universe, and one choice counters another choice and counters another choice. And then you have another layer to the definition of paradox. You have one present self that's on a very high energy Earth and another present self that's on a very low energy Earth. So one can be easily dominated over the other, and vice versa. The very low energy Earth version of the present self can reclaim sovereignty from the high energy self, because paradox has to be resolved. And that resolution is figuring out in your lowest energy state how to recover all of your sovereignty.
So back in Lemuria and Atlantis, is the key in Lemuria or Atlantis? Who is the main player?
The key is Lemuria. Mm-hmm. In a quick explanation, Atlantis was another remedy. All right?
Okay.
But it was a different kind of remedy. It was a remedy that was created by the Lemurians and by the Pleiadians and a number of other species, because so many people had tried to recreate the first species of Earth. They needed to make a group of ancestors, and Atlantis was the anchor for the ancestor spirits who were trapped in the astral world during the timeline wars, and they were able to use a special type of spiritual technology to pull people out of the void between universes where they were stuck outside of time, and get them to incarnate into Earth, and that would be a way of getting them out of the void space.
And that's where Atlantis came from. That process.
That's where Atlantis came from. And
okay.
they literally, within a period of 7 months, they had, the whole planet was populated with buildings and everything, because they literally emerged out of the void and were able to use timeline reconstruction to put their society back together.
Okay, so the key to the paradox is there's a version of me in Lemuria making decisions about my life.
And a version of you in Atlantis, and a version of you on the Venusian homeworld, and versions of you everywhere, because you were erased many times, and there were other versions of you that brought other versions of yourself back and then sent them somewhere else as part of predictive models to unravel the hairball that had been created.
Now, it's the mechanism of the erasure that's part of the problem.
Correct.
Okay, do you want to describe the erasures you're referring to?
Okay, here's an example. You have a situation where you have one species that wants to create a brand new first species of Earth. So they
just a question on that. Why would they want to do that? Why do they want to recreate the first species of Earth?
Earth is the prize of the universe. It's a seventh dimensional galactic seed planet. It can multifunction in many different galaxies or universes at once. And it has special womb chakras on it that can rapidly advance any species that lives above those, as well as literally to create DNA wisdom that can be transferred to any other planet that is in a blank Akashic record world, or to literally populate a world with trees, plants, and animals on a very rapid scale. Earth is the galactic nursery.
Okay, so Earth is the treasure.
Earth is the treasure.
And what is it about being the first species of Earth? Does that give you a hold on Earth?
It gives you a hold on Earth and allows you to incarnate your people from another world there.
Okay, so you can create an entire version of Earth with your species on it.
Correct.
And
with the skin suit that comes built in with Earth.
Okay. Now, so there's a competition to become a first species of Earth.
Right, and that's because of the wars between the light and the dark.
Mm-hmm. And the Time Wars are actually an extension of that initial war between the light and the dark.
Correct.
So how are the Time Wars, ignoring the 15 beings that turned up here and participated later in the piece, how were the Time Wars carried out? What were the attacks taking place and the sorts of maneuvers they were doing?
Well, Lemuria isn't technically the first species even before the Time Wars. There was when Earth was created as an energy planet and then it solidified, it invited tens of billions of people, and in fact hundreds of billions of people from other universes and other solar systems and other galaxies to come there and occupy space to finish the transformation. And then afterwards, right after that, everybody was essentially asked to leave while Earth finished its gestation period so that it could birth its first species. And as it birthed its first species, you forward in time, the Lemurian who were existing began to experience a very strange wrinkle in the fabric of their time. They had timeline sense. So you have other species that identify Lemuria as the first species and began trying to erase them. When Earth asked everyone to leave, it's when the forces of light and darkness were at their peak of trying to steal Earth while it was still blank before it created its first skin suit. So
okay.
That's the foundation. You know, this is the toughest part to understand. Who is the first species of Earth? And in reality, the first species of Earth is everyone that's mass invested. Everyone.
That is the entire 3,983 races?
Absolutely. Everyone.
And is this why the ultimate result that Prime Creator wants from this situation is a unified race?
Exactly. A DNA species race that all is a single.
Okay.
That's why disunity paradox was created and everyone was trapped. So that you had no choice but to eventually resolve it.
Okay, you could say that's a pretty kind of clever way to force thousands of races to unify, and here we are in the middle of it.
Yep.
So the timeline wars were actually executed over well, we've got a 52 million year period, or a 54 million year period to be more accurate, over which multiple races are playing with the time stream, trying to gain advantage and trying to actually become the influential race on this planet.
Correct. They want to be the prime species with the prime political agendas, so that when they go out into the galaxy, they're the ones recognized as the saviors. And that's the savior complex. And in one aspect, we are a savior, but we will be taught and we will be teachers. It'll be a co-creational experiment in sharing unity consciousness with other people and gaining trust over all the stuff that's happened here over the last 54 million years.
Wow. Okay, so we've got 3,883 races playing this time war, trying to gain advantage. Now, yesterday you gave me an example of how a time war incident would evolve, with multiple races actually all jumping in and attempting to influence the outcome at a particular point. Do you want to just replay that for the audience?
Sure. Let's say you have one race that is coming and trying to set themselves up as the new first race. So they come in, let's say, with an asteroid, and they put that, they multidimensionally transport an asteroid from one part of the galaxy to right above the atmosphere of Earth, so there's very little reaction time. At that exact moment in time, there's people that are preparing to prevent things like that, because when timeline wars, time is irrelevant. You can counter anything. They counter that asteroid. Another species at the same moment in time comes in and tries to use a nuclear weapon. That's countered. Another species sneaks in and tries to use a biological weapon. That's countered. And then 25 others come in and do something completely unexpected by mass investing breeding colonies, so that literally the population of the world increases by 25% in that wrinkle of timeline scenarios. And then you have another one that comes in and wipes out that whole timeline and teleports the Earth away.
And is it possible, the kind of incident you just described, is it possible to put a numerical count to the number of times that's been done over this period of time?
Earth's been moved 12 times. So every time it's been moved, it was to eliminate all of those people that were targeting specific moments in time to literally change the first species.
Okay,
but a numerical count, trillions.
Trillions. So they've literally been flinging this crap around almost continuously for this entire period.
Yep.
Okay.
From their presence, very little time has gone beyond.
They're just sitting there playing a game of simulations.
In one sense it is, but that level of technology isn't simulation isn't an accurate concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sentient simulation in many different angles and in many different ways. And what's occurring when these simulations is timeline viewing technology, where they literally view a timeline, or the sentience inside the computer can view 20,000 timelines at once, and then the operators figure out how to intermingle the timelines to get the best result at returning Lemuria or whoever else they are to the pristine timeline of their intention.
Leads me to two questions. One, who is in the instances where Earth was teleported, who made that decision? Is it done through the control system on the grid? Is it done through the collective consciousness? How is that actually done?
Normally it's done through the Unity Consciousness drive, with the Unity Consciousness on the surface graduating timeline. Every time Earth has been teleported, it has been done with technology that has heavily damaged the Earth, to the point where Earth needed to give a massive call out to all the galaxies in our universe and to the 17 universes beyond, otherwise she would have died. And that's why there's been this mass incarnation thing that's been trying to overpower the different timeline species, timeline genocide scenarios, so that you can literally just overwhelm the entire situation with a mass incarnation of life.
And it was during one of these teleports that an entire portion of Lemuria, or in Lemuria itself, from that time point, was actually lost.
Everything was lost. 108 billion people were suddenly in the void between two universes.
And that is what's being driving the Lemurians to, conquer this problem, return the timeline to the one that they desire.
Right.
And the message they got yesterday was that it's not going to work.
Nope. The message they got yesterday was the remedy, which they don't understand is a remedy. We are the remedy. So to them, this predictive modeling, the sentient timeline viewing technology hadn't shown them this wrinkle before. And if it did, there was a suppression of it somehow, some way.
They ignored it?
Well, there are different political organizations at work there, and some of them have reached the zealot levels, and some of them have not. The biggest thing of Lemuria and Atlantis is they did not teach their generation that followed the creation of powerful technology how to respect it, how to pass on the wisdom that timeline technology is very dangerous and should only be used in the strictest of circumstances, or the crystalline healing technologies that are turned into weapons in the different scenarios of the Crystal War cities. The passing of the wisdom from one generation to another, all the while you have spiritual people living with scientific people, living with the hybrid of spiritual and science people, and then multiple different races from other worlds becoming refugees in Lemuria. So there was a watering down of the political concept and a poisoning from within, from entities that were forced incarnating themselves there to be a corruptive force.
There's been soft disclosure of this whole situation in many, many science fiction movies where timeline paradoxes are created, and the usual.
Babylon 5, perfect example.
Yeah, the more recent one with Bruce Willis, for example, where he had to go back in time and shoot himself.
Yep.
Those paradoxes are generally very, very simple, relatively simple. I mean, Babylon 5 was more complicated, but we're talking about, say, the entire series of Babylon 5 being played out on a massive scale continuously for 52 million years.
Correct.
So, folks, if your head is spinning at this point, it's not you, okay? The situation, it couldn't be any more complex at this. Probably, maybe it could, but let's not go there. Okay, so yesterday, our time, the Lemurians were informed that Atlas is not going to work, and that the remedy is something that is not on their agenda.
Correct.
And what was the
I told them, you are the past. You must allow yourself to be in the past, to be a non-I, mighty I am presence anymore, and that we, the low-energy human beings of this world that are the remedy, are going to begin reclaiming us from you. You know, the whole point of the galactic historian is no more secrets. And when there's no more secrets, people can begin to unravel their own paradox in their own way that is in their own sovereignty.
At a ground level, for us here, there's several key elements to that are, you know, if you like, on my checklist of how we actually disconnect ourselves from this disunity reality, or how we unify the disunity. And the first one is to take our energy out of the control system that exists, because overlaid on these time wars, in the latter part of the time wars, we have the arrival of the 15 multidimensional beings who jumped into the timeline along with all the other races competing to be first species of Earth, and actually took over.
Yep.
Took over the control system on the planet, only adding to the complication, as it were.
And they did it on purpose. They knew exactly what they were doing when they began incarnating themselves here. And they knew that the light and the dark were so into the zealotry of what they were doing that they could slip behind the lines, put themselves in a place of power, and put their own people, which are them, in the political organizations that can create a specific type of disunity, so that once the next time Earth was teleported, they could just seize control of the entire incarnation grid and mass incarnate themselves there. And that's when they became 40% of the breeding population. And they didn't have to take the karmic hit to timeline genocide. They allowed everyone else to do it.
Okay, so they literally snuck in the back door and stole the show.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a paradox remedy disunity reality. And the actual remedy itself is us disconnecting from the control system, and not only reclaiming our sovereignty from the control system, but reclaiming our sovereignty from these other I am presences that are still operating as if they were the present.
Correct.
And literally taking back the sovereignty of our souls.
Correct.
The independence of our souls, and breaking out of the paradox.
Correct. What you just described is 3 layers of paradox.
Yes.
And in fact, many of the other positive beings that have been trying to help unravel the scenario here were under the concept that we were dealing with 10 or 12 paradoxes, but in fact, the vast majority of people on this world are dealing with 40 or 50 plus paradoxes.
And by that, there's 40 or 50 I am presences in time.
Correct.
Operating as if they were the present, and trying to shift timelines to their own advantage.
And that's why we find so many people that are in past life connections, and so much of that past life connection is literally taking over here, because the person here isn't in a high-powered Earth. They're in a low-powered Earth.
So the remedy where we retake our sovereignty at ground level is pulling out of the control system and revoking all soul contracts, using
all different citizenships with other timeline scenarios.
Yes, in a spiritual court of equity.
Correct.
Or a court of spiritual equity. Okay, do you want to describe how the court of spiritual equity actually works?
It's a scenario where you and the mighty I am present self asks people that are your ancestors and your DNA lineage to hold space for you, so you can declare the mighty I am presence in no time. And in no time of declaration in the ancestors, you bring in the rest of the ancestors of Earth, not your physical, all ancestors of Earth. And these are the spirit people that interfunction with the creation and procreational process of Earth. They are the ones that work with the ever-present I am selves. And many of these exist on different dimensions and can coexist on multiple scenarios of times. And when you begin in a proper spiritual court of equity declaring the I am self, the presence and the revocation of contracts and the revocation of fine print, you find yourself in dominion with the earth, who's trying to find remedy for each individual person. And the remedy is the individual sovereign power to begin reclaiming the various soul shards and fragments of yourself that are I am presence in multiple situations of different past timeline scenarios, or if they're locked out of the void of space. And as described, the 108 billion people that are locked out between the void of 2 universes with no time, with no galactic time too, they figured out a way to cross into the spiritual world and then get back to Earth and then to begin to reclaim their parts. And that was a way for that 108 billion to whittle down to about 95 billion. But ultimately, those people that did that created even more paradoxes.
Every way that the other versions of us move, they create more paradoxes.
Correct.
And they try to solve the problem.
Yeah, every time they do it, they make it worse.
And
because they never understood there already was a remedy in place.
Okay, and the remedy for us on the ground, quite literally, just taking back, withdrawing our consent to be part of the control system.
Correct.
And using the soul contract revocations to cancel all previous, literally, or cancel all previous soul contracts that are still in play and being used by other versions, other civilizations, using your consent from that situation to actually carry out further attacks, further manipulations of the timeline. So it stops all of the timeline war instantly. As soon as we reach unity, as soon as everybody, or as soon as sufficient in the collective consciousness have done that, the timeline will reset itself and will proceed.
Yep. Say, Andrew.
My guest is Trent from Thailand. He is a very special guest. He has been on a number of radio shows and in his own way has experienced a lot of this world. And he's got a great story to share with us. How are you doing today, Trent?
Hey, not too bad. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So why don't you give people a quick introduction of Trent?
I guess where it started, where I first woke up, I guess, I know this guy called, his name's Herb, I won't say his last name, but Herb sort of, just woke me up slowly. I didn't even know I was getting woken up, to be honest. He sort of made me a bet, which was pretty funny. He said, I want you to go down to the supermarket and try and find me a tube of toothpaste without any fluoride in it. So I thought to myself, yeah, that's pretty easy to find. And I went down there and I just couldn't find any and come back. I said, what the hell's going on, bro? And he's just like, pretty much the government owns Colgate and they pump fluoride into toothpaste. The next question was, what's fluoride? And he sort of just like ignited a spark in me. And for the last couple of years I've just been asking a million questions and been trying to hunt down more and more information, I guess. But
So you've been a truth hunter?
Yeah, I guess so. Just trying to wake people up. When we first come out and say, hey, I'm awake, everyone, I feel like, I guess, a gay person feels when they come out of the closet. You're awake and then all of a sudden you lose half your friends on Facebook and your family think you're crazy. But they slowly come around.
Yeah, it takes people a while to understand when you've gone through a change like you. Why don't you describe your story of what it was like, the rapid rise in consciousness and then what happened afterwards?
Basically you start to ascend kind of thing, like the more knowledge you know, spiritually as well, your spirit starts to wake up. Just weird stuff starts happening. You start meeting other people exactly like you. But it's just like, it was all Herb that sort of woke me up. Herb was a news reporter for CNN. One of his mates, after September 11th happened, 3 months after September 11th, was a guy called Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson did a lot of books, and he did a movie, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He was like the first celebrity after 3 months put his hand up and say September 11th was, a false flag. And the CIA, unfortunately, come around, paid him a visit and blew his head off and told his family to shut up and not say anything. Herb Squires, after that, sort of, he 6 months down the track, he did a he was the first one to do a news reporting. So he got Loose Change. I think that come out in 2005. Herb's come out in 2002, about 6 months after, and he did this like a 2-hour presentation, and I think he had like 40,000 people live from Hawaii watching it and around the world. And sort of after that, he had to do a runner because I think if he stuck around and continued to do what he was doing, he was going to be dead as well. So he sort of took off to Thailand, and that's where I sort of met him, bumped into him, and he started the whole awakening process for me. I sort of started to really ascend really quick when I was in East Brisbane. I guess I was down and out. I sort of, I said a prayer to God, I guess, and sort of said, hey man, like, if you want my soul to help or whatever, I'll just, fight the battle. You tell me what to do and I'll go and do it. And ever since that day that I did that, sort of, knowing that I'm fighting for the good guys, just a lot of weird stuff's been happening to me spiritually. I think the last radio show I did, I got a death threat 5 minutes before I come on and spoke. That was pretty funny. I've had government people yell at me from across the river, shouting out my name, freaking out my friends, going, what's going on, man? I said, I'll just get that. It's the government just trying to make me scared and stuff, not to say anything or, keep my mouth shut. But I can't do that. So, yeah, I had a pretty vivid dream when I was in East Brisbane. It was sort of like you could say the worst possible. The New World Order taken over, and it's been 21 everywhere. And sort of, I don't know if I got shown the future or I got dreams shown to me or whatever. But it was kind of like, Trent, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit down and shut up and just let it happen, or what? And I guess everyone knows me, and I'm just not going to sit down and let anything happen. So just trying to get the word out, trying to wake people up. Trying to stop everything that all these governments trying to do around the world. So, yeah, some interesting stuff happened. When I was in East Brisbane, it's sort of like, man, I just lost all my friends. I come out, I was awake, so I sort of say a prayer. It's like, hey, send some people that are awake my way. Sort of after a poker game, I bumped into a guy called David, and I sort of just, I was just messing around. Like, it was sort of like I was going to play a game and see if I can wake up a random stranger, which was pretty interesting. And it turns out he was already sort of semi-awake, but I kick-started him off. He could see ghosts and stuff when he was younger, and he could see dead people walking around. And he said a prayer and asked, please take away this gift. And I said, what are you doing, dude? I mean, you had like an amazing gift. Why give it away? Well, we found out recently he's still got it. It's just it's being blocked at the moment. He's got to work out how to bring it back. But I just started meeting people like this, and then before you know it, I've got 6 people around my house, and we're all talking telepathic for about 30 minutes. That's when it really tripped me out. I was like, oh my God, I've been sending a little bit too quick here. This is, am I crazy or not? And they're like, no, you're not crazy, Trent. And the interesting topic of the conversation was pretty much all we spoke about was Hollow Earth, which was pretty funny. I remember, oh man, it was a couple of years ago when I put the word Hollow Earth into my Google search engine or nSearch search engine, and 30 minutes later, I had a black helicopter hovering above my apartment, like really low hovering, like the closest the helicopter's ever been to my house. And, they were trying to scam me. I just walked outside, flicked them the bird or the finger, and they just took a couple of photos and took off. Sort of, I was growing I got busted. I was growing a hemp tree. I learned how to compress it down to hemp oil and send it off to the Children's Cancer Foundation down on the Gold Coast. And I got pulled over by the cops. Judge didn't believe me that I was trying to make a tree for hemp oil. Grow a tree. You're not allowed to grow anything in Brisbane. The other states you're allowed to go two plants, whatever. But I was trying to learn how to compress it to hemp oil because I found out, hemp oil can get rid of cancer. even the worst stage 5 pancreatic cancer, you can get rid of that real quick, like in a matter of 2 weeks. You can kill it better than chemo, like 1,000 times better. Exactly like noni juice, that's another one as well. NONI juice, that's 1,000 times better than taking chemotherapy. And I remember just talking to one of the mothers, and I told them all these different cancer cures, and soon like word spread around, and all the other mothers found out as well. So they're just draining your money slowly. That's all it is. They're killing your kids slowly and draining your money. That's what it's about. That's what chemotherapy is. They don't care if you get cured from cancer or not. They just want to drain all your money. And I got thrown in jail for 45 days, and I found out that if you get arrested, you start acting real crazy, and they do a medical evaluation of you, and you get put into a mental facility, and you get the 5-star hotel food treatment. And I really put it on in a big way. And then I thought to myself, no, heck, I'll just do the time for the crime and then get out. And after 45 days, they threw me straight into a mental facility, and they didn't even ask me any questions, because I figured they probably knew who I was anyway. They didn't ask me anything. They didn't ask me, are you seeing things? Can you hear things? They just held me down and did lithium into me straight away and dumbed me back down to a little monkey. So I descended, and pretty much I forgot what I was. I forgot how quick I ascended and woke up and what I was doing. And sort of only recently, a friend just flew from Australia, David, who I woke up years ago. He flew over, and he's like you, Andrew. He can speak to your spirit guide, or your spirit, I suppose, or your angel, whatever you want to call it. What do you call it, Andrew? Spirit guide, don't you?
Spirit guide or source. There are various levels to the dimension of the source or the spirit, but spirit guide works fine.
And he come over, and touchdown Bangkok, and he just looked at me, and straight away he just goes, "Man, you just descended." He goes, "You've leveled down, like you have no idea." And I looked at him and went, "Damn it, you're right." And come back to my place, we'll meditate. All of a sudden I got back into meditating again, and he goes, "Look, I'm going to try something new." And I go, "Okay, cool, whatever." And he goes, "I'm going to sit down next to you." And then he goes, "My angel wants to show you compassion." I said, "I don't know if I'm ready for this, man." I was trying to avoid it. I was trying to, I just didn't want any part of it, kind of thing. And I was just like, "All right, you got to drop your ego and just go with it." So I sort of sat down next to him. I meditated, and he come down next to me, put his arm around me, and within about 10 seconds, I started getting, basically started feeling like pure jolts of love, like full body goosebumps, I call it. It starts from your pineal gland and shoots down your whole back of your spine. I noticed that's when I ascended in Brisbane real quick, because every hour I'd get these jolts of pure love, and it's infectious, man. And I started crying my eyes out. I was crying my eyes out for about 30 minutes, and I even saw the outline. I didn't see like a full picture, but I saw the outline of his angel flapping. He's like, when we stopped, he goes, "My angel just showed you just a trinkle, like a little bit of it." And it just blew me out of the water, and it just made me do a complete 180 on life again, and sort of, it basically made, I felt like I ascended 3 levels straight away, and I was, I'm back in the game again, so to speak. I'm just channeling information again, like you wouldn't believe, and yeah, it's just, I've just been back on this trip again, like what I was in Brisbane, of waking up and, just experiencing different stuff again. I guess you can say I'm going into the 5th dimension, you could say.
That's interesting. When David encompassed you with the angel and you began crying, would you associate those tears as letting go of some of the soul hurt from being put in jail and then being given lithium, the specific drug that was meant to remove your will?
Lithium's nasty shit. I mean, it even messes with you 6 months after you stop taking it. But I mean, they given me I like a good night's sleep, and they were giving me Seroquel, which is like an antipsychotic, and I didn't realise it because it's been like a year since I even bothered to do anything or try and wake anyone up or anything. I've sort of just chilled out, relaxed, and done nothing kind of thing. And something woke me up. Something says to me, stop taking the Seroquel. I stopped taking it, and I just never felt better in my life. I might not sleep. I might get insomnia for a bit, but eventually I'll sleep and get 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then I'm back at it again. And pretty interesting. Lithium's just nasty shit. I'm like, so after 3 months of spending 3 months inside a zombie building, I said, so what's wrong with me? They go, oh, you've got bipolar. I go, why didn't you tell me at the start before you gave me whatever drugs you gave me? They're like, oh, because we didn't know. I was like, so why did you drug me in the first place? It's just a joke, man. But I guess I had to go through it. So I'm thankful that I'm out of that hellhole, and I'm getting back to normal again, so to speak.
Exactly. And you had an opportunity to move away from Australia to go to Thailand that your friend brought you. And then you met me. So a couple weeks ago.
Through Dale.
Why don't you describe that? Because you had a bit of another awakening. And this connects into the next part of the story here.
I guess it's got to do with the headbands, I take it, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I sort of, okay, so I after me and David did that, I mean, David even told me, he goes, my angel can make people's souls cry. He goes, I can make people cry pretty instant. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And once he did that, I mean, I was in tears. I didn't think I let go of a lot of emotional crap when he did that. And David, you're probably going to listen to this. I'm forever thankful, man. I appreciate it. Love you. Cheers for coming back over here. And he's like, I knew there was a reason why I flew all the way over to Thailand. But it was amazing, man. I'm trying to think more now. From before, I was more like I let the fear get to me kind of thing, and like my posts more about New World Order, Illuminati, who they are, what they are. Now it's more about love, pure love. I'm just trying to spread the message of love and whatnot. And I sort of I looked into it. Okay, right now, so how can I detox my third eye? Now that I know that I stopped taking these Seroquels, I'm coming off all this crap. What can I do? I changed my diet. There's crystals that I can get. I'm looking at getting a crystal, quartz crystal. I'm looking at getting this tea that shamans use down in Africa, which induces lucid dreaming, because I've always wanted to astral travel, but I've never been able to astral travel because I know my third eye it's too blocked. Spiritually, I'm just not. I know I'm not there at that level, or something else is blocking me. Like what you told me.
The leftovers of the drugs, actually, and it'll come out in one, like you'd go to take your morning dump. Sorry for those ladies out there, and you'll be on the pot for 25 minutes, and then it'll be out of you. You just haven't built up enough pressure to get it out yet.
Yeah, well, it's just I've just been looking and trying to detox my third eye, because I just really want to travel. If you can't get down to Hollow Earth, you're going to get stopped by the military, like with what happened with Billy and that. Heck, I'll try and astral travel down there. So I meditated, and all I tried to think about was trying to get down to Hollow Earth, and I was really, really trying to focus on it. I focused on it extremely. I remember I had 3 or 4 entities try to block me, evil entities try to block me from getting down there. And then something in my bathroom just ripped the bottom, underneath the sink, they just ripped the sink door completely off the sink cupboard, and that woke me up out of my trance. Something wanted to stop me from going down there. They always try and stop you somehow. I can't explain that, man. What the hell rips my bathroom sink off the hinges? The wind, there's no wind in my room, do you know what I mean? So I looked into more and more stuff. I found the Hollow Earth Network. I got behind that. I started promoting it on Facebook. I think I took it from about 1,000 likes to a couple of hundred likes in a matter of 10 minutes or something, and just trying to get the word out about Hollow Earth. And there's one thing on there. Dale makes these headbands, which Billy taught him how to make, and it opens up your third eye even quicker, and I guess detoxes you kind of thing. So these headbands are pretty amazing. You start to see more. You start to see the world for what it is. When people are lying, you can tell when people lie so easy now. It's not funny, and you do the same as well. You just speak the truth all the time. I've got nothing to gain from lying. I don't make any money out of this or whatever. But these headbands that Dale makes, are amazing. You've got to go to Hollow Earth network.com, I think it is, and check it out. It's just, I'm just like searching. I'm searching for the next level, like how to get to the next level. What do I need to do? Like, for instance, this Christmas, I thought, I know Christmas is a scam. Corporations make nothing. I mean, it's the biggest day of the year for corporations to make half their money. They own all the stores and they have to sell half their crap. I sort of sat back to myself, what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something different this year. Instead of spending money on myself, I'll go down to the orphanage and go spend it with some kids that don't have any parents, whatever. So I end up going down there and I'm donating some stuff, and I'm probably going to end up sponsoring a couple of kids sooner or later or whatnot. But it just, once your third eye opens, you start doing good stuff again, you know what I mean? You promote peace and you just try and do good, I guess. So, you got any questions, David? I'm sorry, Andrew.
I got a couple questions. When you and I spoke that first day, I told you that you had a connection to Hollow Earth, and I told you about being a wayfinder. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Sort of like, what's going on. I think you said an echolocators. So you're kind of like a spiritual leader. Other people are going to start waking up around the planet, and they are tremendously, I just got a shot of pure love, energy just then. I can't explain it, man, but on 12/12/12, there was 100% increase in energy, and basically people, it just hits them. It's invisible. You can't see it. It just hits you, and there's some people just woke up for the first time. So you sort of got to take them through their baby steps, which is why I sort of just spoke to you guys about the fluoride toothpaste thing, because it's pretty easy and simple. A lot of people don't know how to wake other people up. You've got to remember the basics, where you come from and what happened to you and how it happened, and it's a pretty easy one. I send them on a mission. It's something fun, and they come back and what's fluoride, and it gets into they're putting in the water as well. It's in the tap water, and it's in the food, and they're trying to spray us with barium as well in the air. It wakes people up. Gets back to basics. But you said I was an echolocator or something, where I sort of point people
an
in the right direction.
echolocator, like a whale dog.
Yeah. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get my head around it as well.
I introduced you to the whale sounds, and you listened to it a few days later, and you said you fell asleep to it right away.
Dang, in about 5 minutes I was out. Yeah,
the particular sound I sent you was a whale that was playing songs around a boat. It was being joyful and playful, and it was the sound of the head of the pod had a male offspring, and another member of the pod had a female offspring. So it was the head of the pod and the two babies echolocating around a little 20-foot fishing boat. And it was the love echolocation that I had sent you. Now, you've talked about how David came to Thailand to come and help you. As soon as you experienced that, you went out and found Hollow Earth. You found headbands. You manifested your own healing. And in your own way, you echolocated your way to me, because I am an echolocator also. And there's something that people are going to come to understand very, very shortly here. As the two sides of the dream time begin to unify, the side that's in the light of the sun and the side that is not facing the light of the sun, that separation will come to end. But not in the literal sense, in the dream time sense. We have two sides of the world. That means there's a side that's awake and a side that's asleep. That's in the literal asleep and awake sense. Well, it's going to end that concept. There'll be a unified dream society. And from that, people will find their truth in their dreams and be able to navigate through the bullshit. When somebody is an echolocator, they can send a pulse out, just like the sound of a whale, through the ethers of the world, and somewhere else in the world, anywhere, not a short distance, somebody will hear it and echolocate back. And a song will create, and a chorus will happen, and thousands of others will come out, and it'll be like a separating of densities in a little thing that's spinning round and round and round and round. But in a human sense, people will naturally migrate. When I called you a wayfinder, it's because your particular throat chakra is of a lead whale. It has the genetic components to know where the stargates are. This is something the Illuminati wants very bad, is those people that naturally know where the stargates are. It has been a battle since the very beginning. Earth Mother learned a very long time ago that it had to be able to change the position in which its stargates opens every galactic season. Otherwise, people would be able to use it and abuse it. And that was one of the reasons Earth became a prison planet, because you couldn't get in and out through the natural gates. You had to go into Earth Mother and learn from her where they were, which is something that is completely opposite than the Illuminati cabal powers that be. They will not go into Earth in dominion and love. They would only go in domination. So that is our opportunity to communicate with the planet that has given us a very long life, to know where our natural stargates are. And it comes through the form of vibration, a vibration that comes out of your throat. And that throat is linked energetically to your heart. Your heart is linked to that of Earth Mother. And in Earth Mother's dreams come from your heart. Your dreams from your heart go to your brain. Your brain understands what those dreams mean and then tries to manifest them. Trent's story is about manifesting. And this is something many people can learn, how to manifest in your life. The first thing you got to do is be humble enough to ask for help or take help. If Trent had never accepted the love of Dave's angel, would he be here right now? Probably not. But at the same time, Trent's energy is powerful enough, somebody else would have found him if it wasn't Dave. And there are people out there that are waking up now that have to recognize that. There's someone that regularly comes to the Wolf Spirit chat room that's been having her own experience. And one day when she's ready to talk about it, she will. But it is as important as Trent's story, because everybody's story is what helps us define what a complete story is. Trent's vibration right now is of giving back to the children, because he knows that the children are our future. That's his instinct. And the love of his instinct and the love of his future represents why he decided to come back on air after having a rather unpleasant life, being gone after. We've heard many guests on this radio station who have been gang stalked, put in jail, or worse, killed. That's something that the Illuminati does, and there are many ways to attack them particularly. But the most efficient way is to put up an energetic field of love around you. And this is not the love and light stuff of the New Age. This is really doing a physical exercise that expands your heart energy. It is being the practitioner of heart space. And this is something that all echolocators are going to come to terms with, because it all comes from the heart. If you do any studying of the brain and any studying of the anatomy of the heart, you'll discover that in the heart there's an actual piece of brain matter. because all of your life in an embryo starts from the heart and grows out. So you have that as a reference. There is a brain in your heart or a heart in your brain. They are one and the same. And it is our hope that these stories that we bring together inspire others. Trent's story to me is very, very inspiring. In a short time here, we're gonna get into some of the more Hollow Earth stuff that he's learned, because I think it's relevant to the current audience that's listening. For those of you that know me, I can sense the entire potential of the audience, as well as the potential of the archives. I stated in numerous shows, this is not a prediction, this is just my level of awareness. So Trent, when you started studying the Hollow Earth, before you got your headband to after you got your headband, describe the change you went through in that week.
Oh man, I remember this girl sent me a letter. I went around to her house and I just remember reading about Admiral Byrd. She was like, "You got to read Admiral Byrd's story," and I sat down. I read his story and it just resonated with me. Just the way he described everything from bit was it was just insane. It was intense. Apparently, Richard Nixon was given an invitation to come on down into Hollow Earth, but send someone that's trustworthy and got a good heart kind of thing. They didn't want to don't send someone down that's like an evil military, dictator kind of person. And they sent Admiral Byrd down, and he got down there and. What do you do in a situation like that? I mean, the guy's, he would have been pissing himself for starters. And your jaw's kind of dropping at everything that you see. He tries to talk and they just tell him, "Look, dude, we're telepathics. Talking's like so 3D. You with me or not?" And Admiral Byrd, he learned pretty quickly that they just speak telepathically. They don't even bother speaking 3D. But it's not easy to do, and it was just ironic, and it was funny because I was sort of searching for answers. I could see these every now and then, like I'd see this like a flicker of a light, and I'd be sitting there going, "What the hell is that?" I've been seeing them pretty much all my life, and always thought something was wrong with the electricity or whatnot. But there was slowly I was able to train my eyes to look at like a slower paced object, and I pretty much saw it light orb. And I had a friend come around once, and a friend jumped up and said, "What the hell was that just shot out at the top of your head?" I said, "Oh shit, you see it too?" I said, "Sweet, I'm not crazy. Cool, we can cross that off the list." And I've got about 5 or 6 witnesses. They've all come around, they've all seen it. These people are only awake. I've heard of others as well that it's happened to. It sort of only comes out when you're thinking straight from your heart, and it's got to do with pure love. Bang, you see this light orb, and I remember typing in the word Hollow Earth into Google search bar, and that's when the helicopter come around about 20 minutes later. I think the next day the next night I had 5 or 6 people come around to my house. I cooked up some dinner and that. I'll just say there was a guy and his daughter. His daughter was phenomenally gifted. Unbelievable. I mean, for starters, how do you do it? Everyone's sitting down, and I'm talking. We're trying to judge each other to see how much each other knows, because you can't come out and just say, "Hey, reptilians are real." Everyone's going to think you're freaking crazy. You sort of got to work up to the, how much does that person know? And this guy, it's pretty ironic, because I've just been getting all these different people. Everyone's awake, but they've been coming to me with certain gifts. They've all got a different gift. Now, the dad, he could translate any word into Angarthian or Hollow Earth language, and basically I test everyone to see they're not talking crap kind of thing, and I said all these words like devil, and he translate the word into something I can't remember what it was. It was just a language I've never heard of before. Taking about 30 seconds to sit there, stop and think about the word. I guess he was channeling. I didn't know what it was at the time, but he got the word bang and said, I said, look, this is going to prove that you're not speaking bullshit. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm probably going to tell you one word from the little information I know about Hollow Earth, and I'm going to know if you're telling the truth or not. And I said, Angarthia. And he looked at me and he goes, you already know the answer to that one. He goes, it's Hollow Earth. I said, yeah, you're telling the truth. So, it was just, I just remember getting bombarded with all this Hollow Earth information and people coming around my house, sitting down, and, they're like, Trent, why you, the dad looks at me like, why are you still talking for? And I looked at him, he didn't even have, his lips didn't even move, and I went, oh my God, I'm tripping out, wake up. And I looked at him, I go, am I tripping out? But I didn't move my lips this time, I thought it, and he goes, no, you're not tripping out, and that's when I just knew, oh man, telepathic things just kicked in a big sense. That was pretty cool. So we sat down for like the next 30 minutes and just spoke about different stuff about Hollow Earth. It was pretty cool. I pretty much saw these guys. I go, you guys got your spaceship parked outside, or walk and go for a ride. But these people have been like put, you could say people have been put on this planet in certain places. Some have even been hidden or been placed in certain families where, the family's not meant to wake up, so they can be hidden, which is what I've led to believe about mine. Because if I woke up real quick, I mean, there's stories of kids, doing stuff, even people walking through walls. I've heard of that, and I believe that as well. This guy's daughter, besides being telepathic, she was very, very spiritual. And, I remember sitting there and she come out and told her dad, she was, oh, by the way, Dad, I can turn lights on and off without touching the switch. And I was just like, whoa. And I go, that was pretty cool. That was out there. But she was telling the truth. And she found, she was young, but, she was in her early 20s, and I'm sitting there like, how could you be so switched on? She found mountains in Brisbane, and she would sit on top of the mountain as if it was a pyramid. Pretty much that's the reason why I think there's pyramids on this planet anyway. It's to transfer positive energy down into inner Earth, because if you think about it, it's like the battery concept. You've got positive and negative. If everything on the inside Hollow Earth is like a battery, everything's positive, well, you've got to have a negative, and that's why everything on the outside the surface is a negative. It's kind of like, a couple months ago I was just like, oh man, everything's just so negative, it's so Illuminati, New World Order, man, someone come and get me and take me off this planet. I'm just sick of, all these dumb sheep, drinking all this poison and killing themselves, and, there's war. It just got too much for me then. If you think of Hollow Earth as that concept, then, it's true. It's why they build pyramids for. And, this girl would sit and meditate on top of these so-called, she's found lost pyramids in Brisbane, and she just ascended quicker, and her, she's basically highly fine-tuned. Yeah, she just, I sort of, okay, now I go, I'm gonna test you so you're not talking bullshit. She was like, well, all right, we'll come around and catch up with my dad. And I said, yeah, cool. I'll come around and catch up with your dad again. We'll go down the park or something. We used to play samurai swords. Like, we used to train martial arts. Samurai swords and stuff. We had to play with wooden sticks, and that was pretty cool. And I said, look, just don't tell me the address. I'll find you. I go, if you say what you can do what you say you can, I'll find you. It took 30 minutes. It was a pretty bloody big suburb, but I drove around and I sort of just, I don't know, I somehow tuned into her, and I just found her. Bang, I knew exactly where she was going to be, and I found her, and it was just, yeah, I know you're not, talking shit to me either. And there was others that, told me the gifts and they could do stuff, and it was pretty cool seeing them do crazy stuff. You just can't explain it. and it's starting to happen again. So I'm just thankful for David, coming over and waking me up. I mean, I owe David my life pretty much.
So people come to you, and you share your story with them, and you each go through a self-test because none of us have the full telepathic ability to know what's going on in each person yet. This is something people... Hold on a second. This is something people have to be aware of. This story of Trent's is about to be in the living rooms of your neighbors. It's not going to be that widespread really fast. There are people going to be sitting in various living rooms that are talking about the stuff that Trent is talking about right now, because they are going to find their truth. And every time they find a truth, the universe repays them with the next level, and that is another person that comes to visit Trent, or Trent coming to help the children and repay an understanding that it's an endless cycle, that each step you take is a dance in this lifetime we have. Go on, Trent. I just needed to add that at that moment.
Oh, that's cool. Jump in any time. I mean, you explain things better than most people that I had. Since I met Dale and then I met Thomas. Thomas is amazing as well. Dale's amazing, and you're amazing as well. The first thing you said to me, I said, I think I asked you, I said, hey, how can I detox even quicker? And you said you need to go get acupuncture done. You need to get your right kidney pressure point for your kidney to be released, the pressure to be released. And since I've gone down there and got the pressure released, my back's just stopped hurting. And you said, I had spirit guides in front of me dancing from spirit guides, ancestors from Thailand had made some agreement with the Australian ones, and I believe that to be true. After you told me what I need to get done, I went down, I got it done, and I felt I've been feeling a hell of a lot better. So I know you're telling the truth about what you can do, and what your gift is as well. I sort of, I don't listen to all the crazy people, so to speak, but I'm finding that the more I listen to crazy people, the more I feel it's real. It's getting, it's just a crazy. It's just the understanding of that. You gotta. I don't sit down and just listen to anyone. I test them out as well. I sort of test them to see if they can, what they say is true, and pretty much all the truth is. I'll trust random people on Facebook. Truth is on there than more other normal people outside, because they're just trying to feed you lies, and you just don't know who's trying to feed you lies. For instance, like I got more into it. You get Hollow Earth's broken up into civilizations. You got different beings down there. Everything lives in perfect harmony if you think about it. I'm not sure about this one, but I don't even think the animals eat the other animals. I don't know how that happens or how that works, but I know that's true because I've channeled that before. The word conspiracy was made up just so the government can say, hey, put these people in the nut house. Do you know what I mean? I like the word truth better than conspiracy, because there's been a lot of conspiracies that have been proven true. It's one that, I sat down once with a guy, some people might know, Pane Andoff. He's pretty big. He was abducted when he was young in his mother's womb and whatnot, and he's been shown a lot of stuff. I don't know if what he's been saying, Equation Solved on YouTube's come true or whatnot. I haven't been in contact with him recently, but I remember being visited by some guys from NASA, and they basically wanted me to raise money for their underground bunkers, so to speak, for the end of the world 2021. And I sat down, I listened to their story, gave it a chance, and it blew me out of the water. But they
You were a
said,
stockbroker?
Yeah, I used to be a stockbroker. I used to make a lot of money. I made a couple $1 million when I was 21.
Just so people have an understanding of what you did.
So I used to raise a lot of money and made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and I'm more humble now that I've got no money. I prefer not having money, so to speak. it's kind of like, when someone's telling the truth and when they're not telling the truth, when the bullshit meter's on now. But that was a pretty interesting story. But yeah, getting back to Hollow Earth and that, I mean, it sort of makes sense. It's what the whole awakening is all about. I believe gradually you're going to hear more and more about Hollow Earth, and everyone on this planet should change the way to how everyone lives and breathes in Hollow Earth, and I believe the inside will slowly, hopefully, turn into the outside.
So here's another one from Laura. What was my biggest difficulty or block to learning my mystical life daily, and how did I overcome it? Each era of my life had a different block. The first one was to not be a workaholic. I started work when I was a young age. My family ran into money problems, so we all had to work. 14 to 18, I worked at a McDonald's from 4:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon every Friday, Saturday, Sunday when school was off. And when school was on, I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, every night, every weekend for 4 years. So I really didn't get to go out as a teenager. I mean, I still had my times, but so it was a very different era for my life. So first was not being a workaholic. Second was what was true self-healing for me, and what was self-healing so everyone else could see me the way they wanted. And then, doing conformity stuff, going to the family this and the that, and being fully present there and talking to them even though they didn't care about what was going on in my world. I couldn't share it with them. They weren't ready for it, and I understood that. That was that next process. And then relating to people that would who I would share stuff with, that knew that I had special skills and talents to see things before they were going to happen, or whatever else was going on at that particular area. And understanding that there were those that were users, and then those that were true, authentic people. And that I couldn't stereotype people, even though it was necessary as a reading skill to translate into metaphors. So separating what was teaching metaphors versus actuality of meeting people, instantly labeling them as a user because they ask one question up front that is a crossing of my personal boundaries, but that person is so anxious and excited that they didn't care about my boundaries at that moment. And as a human being, counterly, I have to accept they're anxious and excited. Yes, it's great, but my own personal problem is I took a charge from it, and how to instantly depolarize that charge. That was the lesson of eternal patience. So those were ultimately my growth and blocks through living the mystical life daily. Eternal patience, that was not necessarily the hardest one. It's an endurance game. It's just what it is. It's just a plain endurance game. And knowing that negative beings will test you. It's a part of this world. I don't play in their field, but when I do play in this field and they try to come onto my field, I know how to use the peacekeeper frequency so that they think they're on the field, but they're actually in a dream world completely separate of me, not exchanging energy with me. I know as a being I can do that, and that's a legacy of every single being on this world. That no matter what comes into your journey to step on it, you can create a dream world that has all the energy behind it, so that being that's doing that resolves it through the dreaming mind of Earth, and it's never entangled with my energy. Now, that little metaphor of the person coming up and stepping on my journey, eternal patience, was forgive them. They know not what they do. But then there comes the times there are those that are truly aggressive. And many of you kind of know what I mean. They will step on somebody else's journey and forehead somebody in the back, forearm somebody in the back to get to that front of that line. Now, I encounter a lot of those people. And those are the trolls that make comments about how I personally look, or the teachings calling me crazy. The amount of troll comments that I get in a given day are funny. Personal attacks from whole communities because I said something that they don't like the recurrent revaluation of the currency will never happen, or saying that the aliens aren't going to come tomorrow, and that I did a entire marathon, 17-hour marathon on December 21st, 2012, titled "Nothing's going to happen tomorrow. The aliens aren't coming. The RV's not going to happen. The earthquake's not going to happen. Whatever destructive fantasy you have isn't going to happen," because I was challenging fear porn. So those are some of the things that I discover. And then there are the religious people who are great, but are still a zealot stuck in one frequency. Those are actually easier to deal with than the zealot. I want to give this the right language, a colorful euphemistic expression. The Puritan, zealot, retired light workers who try to run this world, who use their puritanical, retired beliefs of another era of light and try to imprint them on you, who will do that to everyone they live with. Their Facebook feed has all of this instant gratification, pictures and stuff. I'm doing this, my cat just took a fart, telling their whole life to be public. Yet that retired woman has no idea there's billions of people that are doing that. And you're just showing off in your little tight shorts. Okay, they don't realize that is those puritanical retired women who are trying to enforce an industry. You can look at all the demographics. It's the women between 50 and 65 who buy all the product, who watch all the shows, who are spread throughout the country. Truth of the industry. My audience is 50% male, 50% female, unlike anything else out in the industry. So those puritanical imprints, that was hard to deal with. Really, really hard. Because I had to reject those people who believed they were good people, but they were actually just charismatic manipulators, spiritual used car salesmen. That's it. Their brand is the only brand to follow, and if you don't follow my brand, I'm putting you under the bus. You probably know a bunch of them like that. On your phone call, they're your friend, but publicly they're your enemy. I experienced that a lot from people who call themselves healers. That was hard to deal with. Until I learned to shut it off. The amount of, how many stories, the whole life stories that come to me every day. Maybe one day I'll reach into the big bag of thousands of life stories, that are basically saying, if you don't give me a free reading, I'm going to kill myself. What do you think that does to me? Or to my PA reads it? I'm not going to give a reading if you're going to kill yourself. It's not my responsibility, and I'm not your keeper. I'm not your watcher. Learn to love yourself. Oftentimes, those never get responses. So those are some of the hard ones to deal with.